So we're going to go ahead and shift so that we can put 1 damage on all of them. Then this is the great thing with Grab Your Swords and Ariel, is we can sing Grab Your Sword for free with Ariel to knock out their big Aurora and get that Jasmine up to 3 damage counters. This is a deck I've really been enjoying playing these last few days and wanted to share it. I saw someone coin this deck a whole new sword because the emphasis in this deck is Ariel, who is Singer 5, meaning even though she only costs 3, she is able to sing 5 cost songs, and that is paired with Steel's 5 cost songs, A Whole New World, and Grab Your Sword. Both of these songs offer tremendous value even at 5 costs, being able to discard both players' hands and both draw 7, or being able to deal 2 damage to each opposing character, but add the fact that these can be sung on a 3 cost card and they both get that much better. Let's run through the deck list in detail and why each card is in here, then we'll play a couple games to show off this deck. Since this is an Amber deck, we have to start off with 4 copies of Lilo Making a Wish. This is the staple aggro Amber card that costs 1 and quests for 2 lore. We also have 4 copies of Stitch New Dog. Stitch is a solid 1 cost 2/2 line, but enables our Stitch Rockstar with Shift 4 to get his amazing ability going a few turns early. We also have 4 copies of Be Our Guest. This card allows us to look at the top 4 cards of our deck and pick a character to put in our hand, and the rest go on the bottom of the deck. This helps us find our needed characters like an Ariel to start singing or a Rapunzel if we need some healing and draws. This card also just helps us if we are 1 ink short on a bigger play. We can use any of our 2 cost or higher cards on board to sing Be Our Guest and then find an inkable character, which would tip the scale to get out a Tinkerbell Giant Fairy. Because we are running low cost cards and especially Lilo Making a Wish, we have 4 copies of Simba Protector Cub. His body card ability lets him come into play exerted, and the opponent has to challenge him first if they are able. Then the namesake of our deck, 4 copies of Ariel Spectacular Singer. We already talked about how great her Singer 5 is, letting us sing 5 cost cards on a 3 cost character, but her other ability also lets us look at the top 4 cards of our deck and put a song into our hand when she is played. This can be an often overlooked ability looking for draw power or dealing damage. We have 4 copies of Rapunzel Gifted with Healing. This card is great in Amber. She gives us the ability to heal up to 3 damage from a character while drawing a card for each damage removed. This provides early draw power, and with her being inkable, she is a must-have in this deck. We're running 2 copies of Maximus Palace Horse, who also is a bodyguard like Simba, but also adds support, which means whenever Maximus quests, we get to add his strength to another chosen character this turn. This ability is very good when dealing with big cards our opponent has, like an Ursula Power Hungry or Tamatoa So Shiny, giving us the ability to hit hard into their high willpower. Our last Amber card is 2 copies of Stitch Rockstar, which has Shift 4, which we talked about earlier, but also adds the ability that whenever we play a character that costs 2 or less, we can exert them to draw a card. Because many of our cards are 2 cost or less, this gives us fantastic draw power for cards we otherwise can't do anything with the turn they are played. Moving on to Steel, we start off with 4 copies of Captain Hook Forceful Duelist. He is another cheap cost card that comes with Challenge +2, giving him 3 total strength on our turn for only 1 cost. This helps us deal with things that might have 3 willpower that our other low cost cards might struggle with, and that we don't want to trade with our higher cost cards. He also is an enabler for our Shift 3 Captain Hook Thinking a Happy Thought. We have 4 copies of Simba Fallen King. Another low cost card, but adds some draw consistency, letting us draw a card and then discard a card when he is played. He is also inkable, which is a big help. 2 copies of Prince Eric Dashing and Brave is another Challenger +2, matching Captain Hook's 3 strength, but Prince Eric also has 3 willpower, which is good when dealing with smaller cards. Next up is 4 copies of Tinkerbell Tiny Tactician, which has the same ability as Simba Fallen King, letting us draw a card and discard a card, but this time she does this when exerted and not just when played. She is also a great enabler for Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, who has Shift 4, meaning we can Tinkerbell Tiny Tactician on turn 3, then shift into Tinkerbell Giant Fairy on 4. 4 copies of A Whole New World, which has each player discard their hand and draw 7 cards. This lets us get rid of a small or dead hand to get through our deck, but it can also be disruptive to our opponent. If we know they just added something to their hand looking to play it next turn, or if they currently have card advantage on us. Next up is 2 copies of Beast Hardheaded, which is a good inkable 5 cost that lets us banish a chosen item when he is played. He is a great tech card for dealing with Amethyst's Magic Mirror or Ruby's Shield of Virtue. Then 2 copies of Captain Hook Thinking a Happy Thought, which like mentioned before is a shift 3, allowing us to get him on board on turn 3. He also has Challenger 3, bumping his strength up to 5, and characters which cost 3 or less can't challenge this character. This Captain Hook really lets us deal with banishing characters and not having to worry about leaving him exerted with damage. Our next 5 cost song, we have 4 copies of Grab Your Sword. This card deals 2 damage to each opposing character and is great against other decks going wide with low power characters. It also helps lay down damage to get knocked out by our next 4 of card, Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, who when played deals 1 damage to all opposing characters. Between Grab Your Sword and Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, you can put 3 damage on all opponent characters in 1 turn. Tinkerbell also adds that when she banishes a character in a challenge, you can deal 2 damage to another opposing character. And our final card, which we run 2 copies of, is Smash, which deals 3 damage to a chosen character. This is just a great targeted damage dealing card. Alright, let's go ahead and hop into some gameplay with this deck here. Okay, looks like we do get to start off with our Ariel, Tinkerbell, Stitch. This is actually a pretty decent hand. I think I'm just going to replace the Stitch Rockstar here. And we do get Rapunzel. I think this is a pretty decent starting hand. We have some early game in Captain Hook, Lilo, and Simba. And then we also have our namesake, Ariel, so we can sing some of our more powerful songs here. Alright, looks like the opponent is going to ink a Flynn, so they're on some sort of aggro bounce style deck. And there's a Stitch, so they're on your typical Amber Emerald aggro deck. We do see A Whole New World. That is a great start here. I'm going to go ahead and ink this Simba to get our Lilo out into the field. And they are just going to quest with their Stitch and ink a Maximus. And looks like they have a Be Our Guest. That doesn't look like they got anything from that. And it's on to our turn. We get a second Rapunzel. I don't think we really need 2 of those right now, so I'm going to go ahead and ink one of them. And then get our Captain Hook out into play. And I am just going to stay on the Lilo for now. And they're going to throw a Simba bodyguard down. And go ahead and quest with Stitch. That is alright, because we have our Captain Hook that can deal with Simba here. And they're going to ink another Maximus. And it is on to our turn. We did get a Tinkerbell, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and ink this Be Our Guest. And then get Ariel out into play, just in case we need to sing. Looks like Be Our Guest is our only song in the top 4, so I'm going to go ahead and take that and put the rest on the bottom of the deck. And I'm going to go ahead and trade our Captain Hook out for their Simba bodyguard, and then go ahead and quest with Lilo. And they have another Flynn to get into play here. And they're going to quest with their Stitch. Looks like they still have 1 ink left. We'll see if they use that. And they do. They get Lilo into play. So they are putting some pressure on us. We get another big Tinkerbell, which is awesome. I'm going to go ahead and ink this Be Our Guest we just got. And then take out the Stitch. Since we then have 4 ink, we can put Rapunzel down to heal the 2 off that Ariel and also draw us 2 cards. This is where Rapunzel really shines, and we got 2 more Ariels. So I'm just going to go ahead and quest with Lilo and pass to our opponent here. And it looks like they have another Stitch to throw down. And they are going to go ahead and quest with Flynn. See what they do with Lilo here. And they leave Lilo go. We got a smash. I'm going to ink one of these two Ariels to get our Tinkerbell started. And then I'm just going to start putting some pressure on and start questing here. Get us up to 9 lore, almost halfway there. And they're going to take our Lilo out with their Flynn. And they're just going to pass. I think we are in a great spot right now. We have 2 big Tinkerbells. And I'm going to go ahead and ink the other Ariel because we still have 1 on the board. And I'm going to shift. But we are up to 6 ink now. So we can play a second one when the time comes. And we'll go ahead and get this other Lilo on the board. And then I am just going to go ahead and quest. Put the pressure on them because we do have game on board now. And they are down to just Stitch with 1 damage counter on it. And yeah, there's the concession. So yeah, I think that really shows how good this deck is here. Let's go ahead and hop into another game here. All right, let's go ahead and boot into game number 2 here. Looks like we got a lot of our 1 cost. We have 3 of our Captain Hooks. We do not need that many to start our hand off, so I'm going to go ahead and mulligan 1 of those away, and then our Tinkerbell, and then also the Maximus. And I think that'll be good. Get a Prince Eric, be our guest, and a grab your sword. Awesome. I'd like to see an Ariel early so we can have something for grab your sword. Speaking of Ariel, it looks like the opponent is also on an Ariel strategy here. We do see a Rapunzel. So we're going to go ahead and ink our 1 Captain Hook and then play the other here. Looks like our opponent is inking a Minnie Mouse, so they are amber. We'll see what other color they are. They are amber and sapphire, playing an Aurora down to the board here. We have another grab your sword. Ink the Be Our Guest. And then put Simba out so we can see another card. We got our Lilo. I think I'm going to get rid of 1 of these grab your swords here. And then we'll go ahead and put our Lilo out into play. And then I think I'm going to sit on the Captain Hook for a turn here. The opponent is inking another Ariel, so they're down 2 Ariels. I don't know if they're fully on the strategy and running 4, but they're definitely down 2 already. And then they're going to play a Be Our Guest. And it looks like they don't have any characters in their top 4, or they just timed out. And they're just going to quest with their Aurora here. Looks like we got our Tinkerbell. I'm going to go ahead and ink Prince Eric to get our Tinkerbell onto the field. And then I'm going to trade with the Aurora here just to clear their board. And then I'm going to go ahead and quest with Simba and Lilo to take the lead with 3 lore. And they are inking a 3rd Ariel. Wow, that is definitely a choice here. To play the other Aurora, which I believe is -2 strength, but just for that turn. We got our Stitch. I know we have Stitch Rockstar in hand, but I think I'm going to go ahead and ink that Stitch. I'd just like to get my ink cost up a little bit more here. Then I'm going to go ahead and Tinkerbell, draw a card. There's our Ariel. That is good to see. And because we drew the Ariel, I actually think I'm going to discard Rapunzel. So now we can go ahead and play the Ariel out. So we have a singer for the next time. No songs. I'm just going to put those on the bottom of my deck. But I'm going to go ahead and quest here. And we have Ariel out, so we can play Grab Your Sword next turn, depending on what their board looks like. All right, there's the 2/2 Aurora and another Be Our Guest. And it looks like they're taking Jasmine and questing with Aurora. All right, we see another Grab Your Sword, so we have plenty of damage to put out. I'm going to go ahead and play this first Grab Your Sword to take out the one Aurora and then put 2 damage on the other one here. And then we will Tinkerbell to put 2 more, so it's down to 1. And then we are just going to go ahead and quest again with our Lilo and Simba. Alright, looks like they're going to ink the Jasmine they got last turn. And then they are questing with Aurora. Okay, they still have 5 ink. Okay, and there's Jasmine, so they can heal 2 of the damage off Aurora. Oh, awesome. There's our Tinkerbell. We got that early Tinkerbell Tiny Tactician. So we're going to go ahead and shift so that we can put 1 damage on all of them. Then this is the great thing with Grab Your Swords and Ariel is we can sing Grab Your Sword for free with Ariel to knock out their big Aurora and get that Jasmine up to 3 damage counters. And then I'm just going to quest with Simba and Lilo, and I think I'm going to hold on the Tinkerbell since it does still have a couple damage counters on it. And they play an Ariel, and then they're questing so that they can remove 2 damage counters from Jasmine. But that is all right. We are in an excellent spot right here. We have clear card advantage. And yeah, they're just going to go ahead and concede there. We were in a great position here. We could ink Simba, get us closer to putting Stitch Rockstar on the field, and keep putting pressure on them. So yeah, I hope you guys liked this deck outline, how the cards were. It really has been a very fun deck playing these last few days. If you've made this far and you really enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate liking the video and also subscribing for more Lorcana content.